Okay, so as I bring up task 2, um, there's not a lot really to describe that you don't probably already know for the three things for doing validation on. Given name, or first name if you will. Um, I put a label over here just so that the user knows what this blank means. Surname, of course, is last name, and it goes here. I say given name and surname because when somebody is typing something in, first name and last name could mean different things to different people. In some Asian countries, the first name given is the last or the surname of the individual, and the last name given is the given name. But regardless, you could say first name, last name. It doesn't really make that much difference to me. Okay, so given name, it goes in this box. Surname, it goes in this box. Age goes in this box. And then I have a button here, and I'll show you this first way of doing things. And within this first way of doing things, also a couple of different options. Okay, so we type in something into given name. Now, this first concept that I'm going to show you here, let's see if I can. Why is it not? Seems to be running. Why is it not letting me drag it? Oh, that's not it. Okay, there we go. When we are going to put in something into this box, we don't want to be able to type in a number or some kind of special character or anything like that. So as I'm typing in my name, I start to type, and then maybe I accidentally hit a number on the the row above on the keyboard, and you'll notice that I can hit this key. In this case, I'm hitting the 4 key because you can't see it, and it won't let me. And then I can continue typing, and it lets me just move along. In the surname, it's the same type of thing. If I were to try to type, say for instance, between the two P's, if I were to try to type a number, nothing happens. And in the age, I'm allowing for a 3-digit age, although that's kind of silly, but let's say that I type in 999. Well, let's back up a minute. I try to type in a letter, it won't let me. And then when I try to type 999, the sound that you're hearing there is it won't let me type any more characters. Okay, now when I do click the button, I get a message here that I can close the form, and so I can do that. Now let's look at some of the things that I did. Under given name, I went and I chose a normal way of validating that particular thing. In order to check character by character as I'm typing it in, I would double click the text box here, and every time the text box gets a character typed in, it triggers text box, in this case that I call it text given, and then it says text changed. Okay, it indicates that every time the text inside of the text box changed by adding a letter or whatever, even a number, then it changed. And I say string s, and I assign the text given text to s, and now I start checking the text that was input by the user. Now, in this particular case, I'm just saying if not, that's what the exclamation mark means. If not, the s dot all, okay, that's the entirety of what the person has typed in up to this particular point. Character dot is letter. Okay, so if it's not a letter, then we need to fix that. Now we could give the error a message, the user a message here, but why give them a message? Let's just make that so that they can't use a digit. Okay, so text given dot text is equal to substring of s 0, the length of s minus 1. Now you're thinking to yourself, maybe, why didn't we just put all that into s? We can't do it. C# does not allow you to change an active command of, like, say for instance, s, like that. So we can't say s equals s dot substring, etc., etc., etc. here. So the easy way is to just put it back into the output string, the component form, if you will. So s dot substring 0 says go to the beginning, s dot length minus 1. Okay, so this is going to check character by character. So if you hit a 3, for instance, or a 4 or 5 or whatever, this is going to subtract the last character that you typed. It's going to take off the last character that you typed and store it back in the original text. Now, unfortunately, it's not enough that we do that. It will put it back into text given dot text, but it puts the cursor key at the beginning of the text rather than at the end. So this line here says text given dot select, and then it says text given dot text length of the input, and then 0 says we don't want to stick the cursor any more than that length. Okay, so this is one way of doing this, and we're doing it here without doing regex. But I did want to show you about regex. In order to use regex, regular expressions, we have to add this line here where it says using system text regular expressions. You have to add that line before you can use regular expressions. Now, as I mentioned, the surname, I put in the same type of thing where I said I can't put in any digits. Okay, and again I use text changed. Okay, this hasn't changed, this hasn't changed, this hasn't changed. The difference is in the if statement. I say if not regex dot is match. Okay, so if it doesn't match these characters, A through Z lowercase, A through Z uppercase, okay, all of this that's in here is a pattern that it checks for. Regex is kind of like a little sub-language within C#. You can use regex in a lot of different languages. So learning the pattern is probably a good thing, but it's kind of beyond the scope of this course. It's something that you learn a little bit at a time until you have finally got it. But basically this checks to see whether it's a character A to Z, lowercase or uppercase, and if it doesn't match, okay, then it says, again, it says not regex and one of these letters. Then we do all of this stuff that we did before. You'll notice this is basically identical except that it's for surname. Okay, again, we go and we take off the last character typed. Again, we move the cursor in the text box to the end of the currently typed characters. So I did the same type of thing here for the age, except that instead of the A through Z, we're using 0 through 9. Otherwise, the same basic idea here. Okay, we check the length, we check the the length here for putting the cursor at the end of the box. But if you remember, when we ran this, when I put in age, I was able to only type 3 characters. So why was I only allowed to type 3 characters there? And the reason we were only allowed to type 3 characters there was if we go to the age text box and we go over to maximum length, you'll see that it says 3. And this is the easiest by far way of just saying, no, we can't type in more than 3 characters. This blocks us from typing in 3 characters and gives us that audio notification, if you will, that we can't type in more than 3 characters. Now on surname, I did sort of the same thing here. Max length, we can do the same type of thing. We can limit it to 30 characters, and you might be thinking, well, why would we do that? Passports tend to limit the length of this, and again, I did it on the first name. Okay, so then what happens when we run this and we are checking for things? I'm going to leave the first one of these blank so that you can see something that I'm going to show you when I hit the button. We'll just call the last name my last name here, and the age is, we'll call it 99. Now when you click the button and you've left the field blank, you need to check and remind the user that they need to type in all of the fields. So when I click the button, it says you must provide a given name. Okay, and when we do that, we also want to set the cursor right back here. And I made a mistake somehow. Oh, I know how. So that it comes up and says you can close the form. The cursor is set to here so that the person types in their particular name. Okay, so at that particular point, I do this, and then I get the closed form item. Now we can fix that closed form item thing by going here and saying we'd have to put in a few variables here. Boolean, and we'll call it given name equals false. And I'm going to alter this, else. Given name equals true. Okay, so what this is doing is, if it's false, then send it back, and if the person fills it out correctly, then it'll go through here and it won't be equal to nothing. So it'll go here and it will send it to true. Now, I'm going to fill out the rest of these, and we're going to see what this does here. So we have another Boolean, and we're going to say surname, and again false, and Boolean, and I'm going to call it age name just for making things like that. Okay, so we have our 3 here. This code is basically the same. I'm going to copy. You have to be careful when you do a copy and paste to make sure that you change all the proper names here. Text surname dot text, and you must provide a surname and text surname and true. And last but not least, text age. You may be wondering though why I'm checking it as a string. The reason is that the text box always comes up as a string, so we don't have to worry about that. You must provide a an age, text age, and of course, oh, this one I forgot to do, didn't I? Surname and a name. Now you may be wondering, okay, well, how is that going to affect this? We're going to say if gname, okay, and ampersand is on this one. Given name, surname, and a name. Okay, so these are logical operators, and the ampersand means if all of these are true, okay, we have to say it's going to do 2 of them at a time, and it's going to say is given name and surname, are those both true? And if they are both true, and only both true, okay, if one of them's false, that's the end of that. But if they're both true, that is they're both filled in, then we move on to that and we say, okay, we had a true, and we say and age name, and if that's true, then everything is true, and we're going to give this the message that says we can close the form. If any one of these is false, then it will skip this message and we will have gotten one of these messages. Probably more than one if we've left some multiple ones blank. Okay, so let's say that I fill in this one and leave this one blank and then fill out. Click the button. It says you must provide a surname. Goes back up here, puts it in the surname blank. And then it says you may close the form. Let's say that I back out of this. You're going to have to do it carefully because there is a problem if you try to back up too much. It says you must provide a given name. Okay. And there's the exception if you back up too much. In this particular case also, we're checking for a number and it gets really bent out of shape if you leave it blank. Let's do this. And then click the button, and then you say you must provide the age. And then if you do that, you can say, it says here, you may close the form. Now, that little crash that comes up because if you back up too far, the text change option is really upset over that particular issue. Now I'm going to show you these one more time just through the just so that you can see these in the video. Again, this first one I did differently simply so that you would see a way that you could do this without regular expressions. It could have been done with regular expressions. You'd have to have this line in, and you would put this exact expression into the if statement. Okay, there's nothing different here between surname and given name. By the way, some people I noticed were trying to stick things into this form call and underneath the initialize component. Don't do that, because initialize component is the thing that sets up all of this. Okay, once you've got all of this typed in, it sets all of this up. You mess with that, you can crash the program, you can crash the whole operating system. So don't do that. You can see here it says Form 1 Designer. If you were to look in here, see if I can click on the thing here, you'll see initialize component right here. Initialize component sets up all of those things on the form, including the form itself, but also text box, labels, drawing the screen in general. Okay, all of this stuff which sets up these components on the screen. and then adds them to the overall form. Mess that up and you really can mess things up. Okay, so do not under any circumstance mess with initialize component. Don't put anything else in here. Okay, so by the way, if you see some sort of internet thing which shows you putting other things in here, don't ever go back to that one. You know, look to see who the author of that program was and never ever trust that person again. Okay, so this is the given name. This is the surname, and again, they're basically the same. Okay, the only thing that's changed is what's inside of the if statement, and you could put whatever is in here into what's ever into here, or vice versa. Okay, the only thing which is really reliant on this regex in this particular program is this, and the only thing really that matters if you were to try to do it with this, you would have to say if character is digit. Okay, so they're basically all the same here. Now the button thing, it says button validate, checks to see if you've left a particular text box blank. Okay, many times in a form you want to be able to make sure that the user has not left it blank. We've already checked to make sure that it meets the criteria of you know, that they didn't type in a an illegal character, but you know, we just want to make sure that they didn't leave it blank either. There are many ways to do this. You could wait all the way till the user hits the button to prevent the validation. That is, you could add basically all of this down into the button validation, check to see you know, if they put in a particular bad character, and then tell them to go back and fix it. You know, there's no particular reason not to, but when you're running this and they're typing and I type in JEF and then I type in a digit and I can't do it, I'm not allowed to do it because I've got those lines in there that trim off the digit that I typed. You can't see it, it happens so fast, but it literally allows me to type the digit, goes in, says that's not a letter, take that bad digit off and don't allow the user to type that in. And then there's other ways to prevent that the user can't type all of that in. And it's also worth noting that that because of that, there are other ways to check it and fix it. That some of this could, in theory, be offloaded to a method within a class, but you know, this is very dependent on the components that are on the form, and this is not really particularly you know, it's not really useful to create a class just for this particular item. This is also a good demonstration of when to use the message box. We want to use the message box to provide messages that say things useful. In this particular case, did the user do something stupid? Okay, have they not filled out one of these, the blanks? Do this, set them back so that they will fill in one of the blanks, one of the empty text boxes. Okay, so again, these are the texts for the first 3 items. I'll leave this here for a minute or so that you can see it, or so that you can pause it so that you can see it. And everything from the button click is here. Okay, so I will do try catch next. The fact that if you back up too far and the program crashes is probably a good demonstration. There's also another way of checking things for validation, and so we will want to do the try catch there as well. But ideally, we want to use a try catch to make so the program is bulletproof. We want to make it so that basically so that we can't have problems with age seems to be most susceptible to this. So if I do this, it doesn't come up with an error like this. We don't want the program to do this. Try catch deals with exceptions, and this particular exception says thrown at call stack, external mode. A lot of this stuff is gobbledygook, but the core of this is length cannot be less than 0. Okay, so if you're at the initial point of a field, okay, this is going to be fundamentally a string. And a string is an array of characters, and an array always starts at 0. Okay? The index of an array always starts at 0. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, however many characters. If we try to backspace on an index, we have a potential problem that can be really problematic. In the age when it's particularly sensitive to the fact that if we go in here and we type in a digit and then we backspace, we're going to get some sort of crash that comes in here. So we're going to want to stop that. And the try catch is something which can say, oh, well, wait a minute. We need to handle that. And it says here, exception unhandled. Okay, so what a try catch is designed to do is to handle something like that and to deal with it. We'll say try, try going into this particular section, and then we'll say catch, and then we will simply deal with it. We'll put the length 0, set the focus, and go back. The user will be able to continue on without the program crashing. That's the ideal. Now, one thing I do want to say about finally, finally is great if you have a very large try catch and there were some things that you initialized before you came in, and before you leave it you want to set those back to their initial values just in case. Certainly there is a very good use for them, but in a very small program it's virtually impossible to demonstrate those. So in order to show that the finally is hit, I'm just going to have you put in a simple thing like a label that says, label.text equals finally is reached or something like that, so that I know that you do have the finally running in there. Task 4 is about keeping log files for exceptions that occur, and we will talk about exceptions, and so then we'll talk about potential the potential for logging that information. And when we do that, we'll also be creating a class that is designed specifically for handling the writing of the errors to a file so that we can see what those have to do with. Okay, so it's getting late and I need to rest, but I wanted you to see this one so that you could potentially see some of the problems, some of the things that we want to be able to deal with. Okay?